I'm Mark.
I'm Matthew.
I'm Luke.
I'm Joan.
Mari kita awali pembahasan ini dengan bertanya kepada ChatGPT. Apakah Matius adalah penulis Injil Matius? Apa kata Profesor Bart Ehrman, penulis sekaligus peneliti perjanjian baru dan sejarah awal kekristenan?
Our primary sources of information are the Gospels of the New Testament, Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John. These are written between 40 and 60 years after his death. They pose a lot of problems for scholars. But one thing I want to emphasize at the outset is that there are a lot of people who say that we simply can't trust them at all. For a historian, that's just nonsense. Matthew, Mark, and Luke did not know they were writing the Bible. They weren't writing Scripture.
Salah satu alasan mengapa kitab yang diakini umat Kristiani ini diragukan keasliannya sebagai wahyu ilahi adalah karena 4 tokoh yang diklaim sebagai penulisnya, Matius, Markus, Lukas, dan Yohanes, tidak memiliki identitas yang jelas dan kredibel secara historis.
Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John, my friend, they wrote between 90 to 110 years after Jesus. Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John, they were not disciples. I ask you, Matthew who? Mark who? Luke who? John who? How could 4 people that wrote separately, all of them forgot to write their last names? Not only did they forget to write their last names, but they began their chapters. Although they wrote separately from each other, they all started out the same. They all said, according to. Paul, if you wrote me a letter or wrote your wife a letter, would you write according to Paul? No, you wouldn't. You would write your name at the end. And if you were asking for a debt that I owed you, you would write your last name and your address. The alleged gospel writers, they didn't write a name, they didn't write an address, they didn't write a reference, and in the beginning of each one of their gospels, they said, according to. No one knows who these people are who wrote those 4 gospels. They absolutely were not disciples.
Bukti nyata Matius bukan penulis kitab Matius ada di Matius 99, di mana dia menulis dirinya dalam perspektif orang ketiga. Gaya penulisan ini mengindikasikan bahwa penulis sejatinya bukan Matius, melainkan orang lain yang menulis tentang dirinya.
The Quran tells us that we believe in the principle that Moses was inspired by God, David was inspired by God, Jesus was inspired by God, and whatever they gave out in the respective times, it was from God, infallible. But those words were not preserved in the pristine purity. That is what we are questioning. But since Jesus didn't write a word, in his lifetime not a word was written. He didn't write it, nor did anybody write a word in his lifetime. These are all books, anonymous books. Matthew has used Mark's gospel freely. In the language of the school teacher, he was copying wholesale from Mark. And Mark was not even one of the 12 disciples of Jesus. Why should an eyewitness and a ear witness like Matthew go and copy somebody who wasn't there? It doesn't make sense. And in the book itself, Matthew tells us, Matthew 9:9, he says, while Jesus, was going forth into the way, Jesus saw a tax collector called Matthew. And Jesus, comes up to him and he says to Matthew, follow me. And Matthew, followed him, Jesus. Who wrote that? God write it? Did Jesus write it? No. Did Matthew write it? No. Yes. If Matthew wrote it, he would say, while he was going forth into the way, he saw me at the tax collector's table, and he came up to me and told me to follow him, and I followed him. This is written by somebody else.